Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. I am your host, Rachel Cossar, and I'm really excited to take a look at some of these concepts that we may learn at larger companies, and then really learn about ourselves if we strike out on our own. With our guest today, Tracy Bizelli. So, Tracy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having me. My first podcast.
Is it really?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Wow. Well, we're excited to have you. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and what you're up to these days?
Yeah. I have been in the corporate L&D space for a very long time. I won't give you the number of years, but I've been super fortunate to work at Google and most recently Meta. And now I kind of ventured out on my own. I've been doing some consulting work for the last year or so, which has been really interesting. So yeah, I've had a really just fortunate to have lots of great experiences throughout my career. So hopefully I can share some stuff with you.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think it's like I said at the outset, right? Very different worlds to be
Yeah.
navigating.
Yeah, very, very different. It's been a really interesting experience to be kind of on the other side. I have, like a lot of people, worked with a lot of great vendors. So it's just been fun to be on the other side.
Totally. So, on that note, are there any lessons that you learned from your, time in massive, like some of the world's biggest corporations that have continued to support and guide you through your now more independent role?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of things for me to remember or that I took with me. And some of it was just to kind of go back, almost like go back to the basics, right? When I approach and do work with people, communication is key. Making sure you have a very structured approach to the things that you're going to do, and everybody's in lockstep on the goals. I think it's very important that you understand the culture and the company and how they like to operate and things like that. And those are all things I think you learn in big
Mm.
corporate settings like that. So those have carried over for sure. And then, some of it, like understanding how different organizations within a company structure kind of operate and link together. That part has been really, really helpful. It
Mm.
kind of enables you to go into a company and kind of quickly see how things connect, which has been really great. So those are some of the big ones that I think I brought with me for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like working at a larger organization, especially if that organization is a very innovative company like Google or Meta, right? Like,
Hmm.
did you find that working on your team and collaborating with other teams was similar in a way to the work you're doing now, but just independently? Like, was there a lot of that entrepreneurialism within your experience at these larger companies?
I think so. There's a lot of things where uh, there isn't like a prescription there, right?
Yeah.
So you are the people generating the ideas, you are the people having to go sell and get connected with the resources that can kind of help you. So I think that spirit is kind of always there, which can be really challenging, right? If for some reason maybe you don't have the background or the understanding of how to go do that, those can be barriers for a lot of folks. But
Mhm.
that, if you can dig in and you question and you challenge and you partner in a good way, those things can have just really, really great results. You can do really great things, but it
Mhm.
can be difficult.
Yeah. It's interesting because we work with a number of very small companies, and then we work with like massive companies. And I will say it's a headache working with the larger companies.
Yeah, I mean that is a drawback of some sorts, like navigating all of that and knowing, you may reach out to one resource and you really need them to partner with you, but they've also got how many other people knocking on their door.
Hmm.
So the resource
Hmm.
capacity constraints can be difficult, and
Yeah.
how you prioritize work and things like that can just be a challenge of the process. All of that stuff, a lot for good reason, right? But it does, smaller companies, you can move really fast.
Yeah.
still stay within the safe guidelines or
Right.
guardrails, but you can move much faster. There's less people, there's less,
Right.
red tape, all the things. So yeah,
Right.
I hear you.
So in an ideal world, do you think that, like, who do you think, I'm going to switch this question up a little bit. Like, who do you think has more to learn from the other?
Hmm. It's funny. The thing I would go back to is what I said a little bit earlier. It's that companies remembering the importance of the grounding and the process, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you get moving so fast that you forget about the things that actually trip you up down the road. Like, right, if
Mhm.
decision making isn't super clear,
Mhm.
if the goal isn't super clear, right? If we haven't clarified the roles, like even on a project team,
Yeah.
those are the things that like lead to all kinds of problems that just explode. So I feel like the consultant world, like they know how to go in and structure that really well and ask the question,
Right.
but you get moving so fast that you just drop those things to the side. And yeah, it leads to all kinds of problems. So it is really important, I think, to take the time to structure things properly, and leaders need to
Mhm.
check in and make sure things are staying on track.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like, okay, it's off and running, right? And you kind of let it go and forget about it because it'll be fine. No, you got to keep checking it. Those
Right.
are the things that I would say big corporations need to kind of remember. The 101 is the important
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
That's so interesting because I would imagine that that would be a similar lesson for smaller companies because I think
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
smaller, there are fewer stakeholders. Your lines of communication are a little more casual and a little more immediate and a little less process oriented. Like I think about Virtual Sapiens, we've recently added some team members and I'm like, oh, like we do, but we're like tiny. We're like 6 people. So even with 6 people, I'm like that communication and the process and making sure that expectations are very clearly set needs to happen as well. And I think that that can be something that is hard for smaller companies to maybe realize is a reality as soon as there's maybe more than like 2 people
Yeah,
on board.
you're right. It's important no matter what, and I think it's more the challenge is probably different for smaller companies, right? Because the capacity to get through all those things may not be there.
Mhm.
So it's a challenge in a different way. But you're right. It's important no matter the size, no matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there like, do you have any examples of when something was either done really well or when some unfortunate like consequence kind of spiraled out of control because this mechanism of communication and process wasn't in place?
Yeah, maybe like kind of like an example from some past roles. I think we there was an example of like trying to enact some change across the team and implement like a different type of service model to support like a larger learning team, right? Maybe you have like some type of central operations, if you will, um, like changing the way that that team was kind of operating. I think forgetting the communication, the roles, the clarity around who was going to be doing what, how we wanted things to flow differently. There was just a breakdown in how that was communicated out to the broader team, and what the expectations were to move and operate differently. And unfortunately, you may think you're doing it right, but where it kind of slides is down and through the team. And
Mm,
what you start to see is like tensions coming up
yeah.
between maybe individuals or two different teams because they both might feel like it's their role to execute or to be responsible for or what have you. And so that's where at least I have seen things start to bubble up. So, for leaders, just being very clear about what's going to happen. Not everybody may be happy about it, but if you aren't clear and you let it go, that's the impact that you start to see. You'll see it like bubble up in forms of frustration, or you start getting questions about what my responsibility is. Those are like triggers that you should be really being mindful of, because something is wrong when you start to see that. So that's a vague example, but that's where I have seen it happen recently.
What in your work now, like how do you help organizations without strong, like organized, like very prescribed, described L&D, stay agile and stay like, because I feel like some of these skills that you're talking about are developed as a result of L&D efforts, right? The awareness around communication and how to do that, and processes, and how to make sure that a process moves beyond you and across a team, and right? Like a lot of those things, I think happen as a result of L&D initiatives. So yeah, and as a result of that being done successfully, you have a company that is moving together and in flow and all that. So how do you like help companies who either don't have an L&D department like at all, or like have one, but it's kind of not really fulfilling its function? Yeah, exactly. Right. So like, how do you help companies like that?
Yeah, many years ago, I was a team of one.
Yeah.
And I was supporting like a customer service type setting environment, and it was just me. And what I ended up doing is partnering with our leadership team to understand what was really needed and where should I focus. And it ended up being like leaning into things, the old concept of like informal learning and peer-to-peer learning. And so what we did was kind of engage with the experts across the team and had them do brown bag sessions. This isn't new stuff, but what it was doing is kind of hitting some targets in how the leadership team wanted people to engage, and how they just the steps they wanted them to take to help the team grow. And so we developed even like a simple point system. So if somebody presented a brown bag, they got points, where they were earning points towards something, right? So some of these things are like simple things, but going back and understanding, what are the resources that I have? What can I do as a person, a team of one? What is it that the org really needs to have done? Because that, I think, you do kind of start to pick everything up, and you really need to maintain your boundary. But if you can find that one thing or two things that you can do and do really, really well, just kind of be, you have to think outside the box a little bit, and how to structure and pull in the people around you. You work with lots of talented, smart people. You can't do it all. So how do you help them get engaged to do it? That's what I would focus on first.
And do you think it really, like, is there something in general that you have found is like across the board, every company needs to be like, every L&D leader needs or finds will be a priority? Like, is it manager training? Is it just like general employee upskilling, onboarding? Like, what have you found in that regard?
Yeah, there are some commonalities. I think, things like onboarding, manager training, things like that are fairly consistent. Soft skills kind of comes and goes. But the way I used to talk to my team about it was making sure that we understood like the product that we were going to deliver, and being aligned with the whatever their leadership team is, and what those goals were, and then what was the product that you needed to support that. So a lot of those things are pretty common. And I would say you don't always have to do them in-house. There are a lot of great vendors that can come in and do great management training or leadership training for you. So it doesn't always have to be, the thing that you do. Find good partners to do it. But as long as it matches those goals and the product that you want to support and provide, that's important as well.
Right. I think that's such a great point, is especially if you're on the smaller side, just knowing that you can leverage external partners, which brings us to something we were discussing before we actually launched the recording, which is that at the same time, there is so much noise around vendors and who those vendors might be, right? And so would you then maybe recommend, would you recommend that L&D leaders in general like really look for like the platform that can support the majority of their needs versus kind of cobbling things together through disparate systems?
That is a tough question right now. And I've talked with lots of folks lately about the the AI
Yeah.
platforms and things that are coming out of the of woodwork, and they're all so good.
Yeah.
Like you dig in, and it's like wow. So I think there's almost like two tracks right now. One
Mhm.
where you have things like that are focused on content creation. And that's one I think you can start to tap into. And if you haven't already, like start experimenting tomorrow.
Yeah.
My last team laid out the ADDIE model, and then they laid tools across that model, like what supports, like graphic design or video development. And what we were looking at is like how much time could we save by implementing these tools, and we were testing different ones out. So I would recommend in that space definitely test it out, because
Yeah.
what you want is to fit it into your workflow, right?
Yeah.
Then on the other side, that one is where I think before you get into any platform, you need to make sure your goals are really, really clear around what you want to do. What
Yeah.
is it you want to do? And making sure that you've done some homework with your audience to know what will work. So go in informed and test. Definitely
Mm.
test if you have the ability to do that. Sometimes you
Mm.
don't. But definitely test it out and think through the things like how do you actually get the system through the door. Some companies have really strict security and privacy restrictions, and that may put a blocker in there. So definitely do the homework,
Yeah.
planning, have a plan. That's the best thing that'll help you choose the right tool for you, I think.
Right. You've given a ton of amazing advice already, but I'm curious, this is kind of, looking it to the future, right? The
Yeah.
next decade maybe sounds a little too daunting. Maybe it's the next year or 5 years.
That's a scary
I'm like,
target.
well, who knows? But yeah, what would be your top advice to HR and L&D leaders who are trying to really, stay ahead and stay afloat in the next few years?
Yeah, it is. I know it's a little bit scary for folks right now. I think if people, obviously the answer has to include AI, right? Like we're
Mhm.
all kind of facing that today.
Mhm.
If you yourself are not skilled in AI, I mean, don't worry. There are lots of tools out there that can help you. Start looking at it, start practicing. I subscribe to a newsletter. Let me. I think it's called. I'll have to ping it back to you so we
Yeah.
can maybe add it. It's
Yes.
really good, but it's like just a daily newsletter about AI in general, and
Oh,
it's
awesome.
it's not learning focused, but it's great. I'll make sure we get it in here. Um,
Yes.
but keeping up to date on things like that, having your team experiment, like do those things. You watch the experiment yourself, play around with it, get your hands on it,
Mhm.
understand how it works, because I think the more you understand, the thing that I've seen is we really need to unpack kind of the underbelly of your team. Like, what are the processes? What are the tools? What are the systems? What's all driving your team? How do you manage content? Not just your team, but across the company. What do those
Mhm.
things look like? Because to be really AI ready, I think you have to know what are you kind of looking at? What needs to be focused on? Because sometimes it's the unpretty, unfun stuff that you really need to make sure gets tweaked and honed and
Yep.
tidied up in a good way. So look, practice, learn, start to assess what's really happening on your team, and the systems that support your team. Because if though you can start to work on those, and then I think that all can help you start to shape like what are the roles? How do your roles on the team need to evolve? Some of them might be
Yeah, right.
very different roles that you need to start bringing on, but there's some evolution to some roles, right? You have an ID today, lots of teams have learning experience designers. Does that pivot need to happen? What does that look like? How do we help the employees kind of step change through that? That's the stuff I think in the next, I don't know, decade's kind of tough, but in the next year or 2 years, those are the things I would think I would go after. And there are some great consultants out there that if you need a thought partner that really understand AI can help you think through those things. These are kind of big changes.
Right.
So, lean into your partners and help bring some people in to think through things with you. That's what we were doing in my last role because you don't know it all, right? You need some help. It's tough. So lean into your network too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tracy, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your insight in this like pretty noisy, chaotic time. It's really helpful, I think, particularly your perspective from having worked inside the belly of the beast, so to speak, and then now on the outside, right? And I think it's helpful for both formats and structures to maintain awareness of what the experience on the other side is, because that awareness, I think, can lead to a much smoother partnership and therefore greater impact. So anything else you'd like to share?
No, just thank you so much for having me on. Hopefully some of this was helpful. I really enjoyed this. Thanks, Rachel. I'm so glad we got to connect.
Yes, likewise. So thank you again, Tracy. And where can people follow your work or connect with you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm on the LinkedIn, so look me up, Tracy Bizelli. I think you could find me there. I'm on Instagram, generically Tracy Bizelli again. You can find me there. Reach out and ping if you want to connect. I'm happy to chat anytime. Give me a ping.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you. And as always, thanks to our audience for tuning in. We'll see you next time.